Growing up as a weird, awkward tween girl in a tiny Midwestern town, I, of course, was drawn to the fascinating world of manga and anime. And while I typically watched more mainstream shonen anime, when it came to manga, I definitely leaned into the shoujo genre. I think in my heart, I was just a young girl who wanted to read about romance, drama, comedy, and whatever else was jam-packed into shoujo manga of the mid to late 2000s. I started out reading Shoujo Beat, which was a magazine you could buy at Barnes & Noble or Borders, rest in peace, that had chapters of various shoujo manga so you could get a taste of the series without fully committing to buying a volume. I don't remember exactly, but I believe that is how I was introduced to the work of Erina Tanemura and her absolutely insane manga series, The Gentleman's Alliance Cross. While I work on this caricature, I want to introduce you to, or jog your memory about, this manga series that I had always deemed my favorite. Known in Japan as Shinchi Dome Cross, the series had ups, downs, sadness, happiness, violence, romance. Seriously, rereading this was an incredible ride. I haven't read it since I was in middle school or early high school, and back then I was not shy about calling this manga my all-time favorite. Why did I love it so much? I'm really not sure myself. I remember my dad coming back from Borders every so often, which was a big deal because Borders was at least an hour drive away, and surprising me with new volumes as they came out. He was seriously so sweet for that, funding my nerdy obsession and knowing which volume to buy for me. Initially, I do remember what drew me to the series. It was the art. Tanemura has the classic exaggerated shoujo style that was often featured in Ribbon, a Japanese magazine that showcased manga for young girls. I was so enamored with her art style. I truly thought it was perfect. Big eyes, the ultra-fine detailed hair that was a quintessential part of 2000s anime art styles, and the entire wardrobes the characters had. Tanemura had, to my knowledge, mainly written fantasy genre up until The Gentleman's Alliance Cross, so it was no surprise that in some of the extra art or chapter covers, she fell back on that familiar fashion and dressed even her ordinary characters in fantastic, whimsical attire. I remember copying the outfits that she had created, trying to draw them myself as I was just so captured by them. Now, the story itself was fuzzy to me. Last week I went through and reread everything, and with each chapter I felt my headache deepening. And I think two things can be true at once. When I was younger and my brain wasn't fully developed, this story appeared amazing, well-written, and meticulous in the twists and turns that occurred. But as a 29-year-old woman, reading this story was just such a shock. I couldn't believe some of the plot points, the characters. Really, a lot of it had me suspending my disbelief for any of it to even make sense. But again, these manga are targeted at younger girls who likely enjoy this sort of thing. Nowadays, I much more commonly read josei, and if I do read shoujo, it's usually because I want to take a trip down memory lane. So here's the premise. Haine Otomaya is a 15-year-old girl who is attending the elite private Imperial Academy. She doesn't fit in, and prior to attending, she was a gang member. I think a better term might be a delinquent, although Haine did commit violent acts and actually beat the shit out of people. Side note, I always called her Haine in my head when I read this story as a kid, but I listened to a bit of the drama CD and confirmed that her name is indeed pronounced Haine. The reason Haine even began attending this prissy academy in the first place is because of a boy she met while she was a delinquent, Shizumasa Togu. Shizumasa had written a picture book when he was a kid that Haine had a copy of and treasured deeply. Their initial meeting was warm and kind, so when Haine enters the academy and finds Shizumasa, the student council president, is very cold towards her, it rattles her a bit. Still, she is determined to win his love and do everything in her power to be with him. Haine was such a delinquent in her childhood because her parents sold her to the wealthy Otomaya family to pay off their debts, which already sounds pretty insane. Despite this, she shows herself to be a very charismatic, cute, and cheerful girl to her peers. In the school, there's a sort of hierarchy based on wealth, and Shizumasa is referred to as the emperor of the school. It's really fucking weird, but the student council is essentially sort of royalty amongst the student body. Some other members of the council include Ushio, Haine's best friend, Maora, the cross-dressing treasurer who also lives a double life as the school's postman, and Maguri, the gay vice president who is in love with Shizumasa. So it's already pretty messy, but due to some weird circumstances, Haine is named as Shizumasa's bodyguard, and her rank of bronze is upgraded to platinum. And the platinum is meant to be the partner of the emperor, so on the surface, she and Shizumasa seem like they are together, even though behind closed doors, he is still aloof and insists he doesn't remember her. There are a lot of strange twists in this story, but the earliest and perhaps biggest one is the classic soap opera rug pull, twin twist. It's revealed that Shizumasa is actually his older twin brother, Takanari Togu. Takanari truly didn't remember Haine since he didn't actually have an interaction with her in the past that Shizumasa did. And meanwhile, Shizumasa is chronically ill, so Takanari is secretly standing in for him at school to give the illusion that everything is fine. And don't worry, they shade in Takanari's hair dark and keep Shizumasa's light so you know who is who. Takanari was the least favored twin by his parents, so he has some resentment for his brother. While he's initially very standoffish to Haine, he slowly begins to warm up to her and can't deny that her steadfast sincerity is something that he truly admires and likes about her. Little by little, he begins to open up more to Haine and isn't quite as rude or as cold as he first was. It's then later revealed that, surprise surprise, that picture book Haine loved so much as a child was actually written by Takanari, not Shizumasa. So one of the main reasons Haine fell in love with Shizumasa is sort of void now. And then there's the inner conflict of which twin do I really love? Or do I love them both? It's very ridiculous upon my reread, but hey, I ate this shit up when I was a tween. Remember Ushio, Haine's best friend? Well, she's actually in love with Haine. This manga is quite interesting because despite being shoujo and not shonen-ai or shoujo-ai, there are a number of queer characters. Maguri, who originally crushed on Shizumasa/Takanari, is actually the object of affection for Maora. They have a sort of love-hate relationship. And while Haine is straight, Ushio still holds a one-sided love for her. And Haine cares for her, of course, but she's in love with Shizumasa, or Takanari. Whatever. Haine struggles to act as the platinum and basically the entire student body resents her. You learn quickly when reading her inner dialogue that her happy-go-lucky demeanor is a pretty big act, and she has a lot of self-hatred and trauma buried inside her. It always saddened me to read it as a kid because I just wanted her to be happy, but that was just my simple-minded thoughts back then. What we know about Haine is that she does have a loving home with the Otamayas, even though she was unwillingly sold into that home and is cared for by her adoptive mother and father, as well as her adoptive brother, Kusame, who is, you guessed it, in love with Haine. Haine has that magic poussoir, I don't know what else to say. And while the Otamaya family love Haine and treat her as their own family, she still stews with self-loathing and always feels she isn't good enough because of her birth father's decision to abandon her. It's revealed that Haine has two siblings from her original family, the Kamiya family, Tachibana, a grade school-aged boy, and a sister, Komaki, who is around Haine's age and claims she hates Haine. Komaki announces that she and Shizumasa, or Takanari, I know this is confusing, are engaged. Like, what in the actual hell is going on? Haine and Takanari share a tender evening on the beach and pretty much confirm that he has feelings for her at this point, not Komaki or anyone else. And of course the engagement is not real. Komaki actually wants to protect her dear Ne-sama, and the chapter ends with her running away in shame and Haine calling after her. She reveals to Haine that their father wants to bring her back to the Kamiya family. She also tells Haine she is in love with Kusame, Haine's brother, and Haine believes the feeling is mutual, when in fact he loves Haine. Let's add another love triangle into this mix, why don't we? I wish I could get into all the details, but it's nearly impossible. I just want to try to hit some of the bigger points that made this manga so ridiculous, yet so strangely addictive to read. I also want to note that there is a good amount of comedy sprinkled in, and a few truly laugh-out-loud moments surrounded by a sea of extremely dark and hopeless situations that Tenemura insists on switching effortlessly between. I think the comedy and lighthearted moments are what kept me reading as a kid, because some of the main parts of this manga are just downright depressing. Haine gets kidnapped, because of course she does, by none other than her father, just as Komaki had warned. Her father tells her that her mother, Maika, is losing her memories. Let's add some much-needed amnesia to the story. She doesn't seem to recognize her own daughter until Haine mentions her name, then something conveniently snaps back into her memory. Takanari and the other student council members rescue Haine from the Kamiya house and bring her back to the academy. The postman, who has acted as sort of a therapist for Haine, shields Haine from getting hit by a ball, which knocks his hat off and reveals him as Maora. Haine is shook, of course. I swear everybody in this damn manga has a secret that eventually gets aired out. Maguri, by the way, has been crushing on the postman while shunning Maora, so this is a shock for him too. Maora then challenges Takanari and vows to make Haine his. Everyone is obsessed with Haine, which I guess is indicative of a standard shoujo heroine. But Haine knows it's a front because Maora actually likes Maguri. Haine and Maora challenge each other with actual weapons, and then 1-2, skip a few, Maora ends up with Maguri. Haine starts accepting the idea that Takanari is the one she truly loves, not Shizumasa. Takanari is already head over heels for Haine, but the nature of their relationship is pretty complicated bearing in mind the twin twist. Clumsy Komaki nearly falls off of a cliff but Haine saves her and throws herself over the cliff in the process. Takanari comes to her rescue, and Haine confesses her love for him, not Shizumasa. I feel like a lot of the problems and complications that arise in this manga are so convenient. Anytime there needs to be another flare of melodrama, a new twist is introduced or something rare and crazy happens, like stumbling off of a cliff. Just whatever gets the story moving along, I guess. Haine goes to the infirmary and discovers Ushio getting close with the campus doctor, who I'm just gonna call the doctor, or sensei, and he tells Haine Ushio has been with over 20 men, which is a shock to her best friend, especially since Ushio had earlier declared she hates men. Haine gets upset, and Ushio tells her that if Haine is her partner, she will stop being with random men. She kisses Haine because, well, every character needs to kiss her, it seems. Actually, Tanamura even makes a meta gag when Haine meets up with Meguri the next day, and she gets scared that he'll try to surprise kiss her like everyone else has. In order to keep Ushio close to her, Haine returns her ribbon to Takanari and gives up being platinum. She agrees to be with Ushio as her partner in fear of losing her best friend. She also cuts her hair short, the way she used to wear it when she first met and befriended Ushio. But her decisions obviously negatively affect her, and her usual spunky self is a lot more toned down in the aftermath of her choices. Even though Ushio got everything she wanted, she is also unhappy and confused because of it. This ends up resolving itself come the next chapter, and everyone is happy again, temporarily of course. The girls, Haine, Ushio, and Maura have a sleepover. It's actually kind of shocking how accepting everyone is of Maura being one of the girls, because this was released between 04 and 08, when that kind of idea was much rarer. But Tanamura writes the gay relationships and the cross-dressing character as fully integrated into the plot as anyone and anything else, so it's sort of refreshing, honestly. At the sleepover, Ushio confesses that she's fallen in love with the school doctor. Because we haven't had an overdramatic reveal in a while, Haine discovers an old photograph of her mother, Maika, with her adoptive father, Itsuki. In it, they are wearing the school uniforms and are clearly together. So yeah, Haine's adoptive father is actually her birth father, and the father who sold her is not actually related to her by blood, so Kamaki and Tachibana are her half-siblings. She confronts her mother, and she remembers that she and Itsuki were lovers, and Haine is their daughter. Kamiya was the emperor of the school back in the day, and made Haine's mother his platinum. Maika gave birth to Haine, and hoped everyone would assume it was her and Kazuhito, Kamiya's baby, but she resembled Itsuki a lot. It was a scenario straight out of a soap opera. Haine then decides to go back to being a gang member. Her and her old crew develop a plan to kidnap Haine's mother. And what do you know, one of Haine's delinquent friends, Kasuga, is actually Shizumasa and Takanari's cousin. Holy crap, I am exhausted trying to understand this story. Haine's old rival gang tries to attack, but Haine beats the shit out of all of them. She threatens to kill herself, but Takanari and Shizumasa stop her. Kazuhito and Maika are stuck in their home while it's on fire and prepare to die together, but Haine comes to try and save them at the last moment. She and her father, not father, reconcile, and it turns out he has always cared for her this entire time and just wanted her to succeed. The next chapter starts with Haine in the hospital and the two twins at her bedside. Maika and Kamiya survive, and Itsuki, Haine's real father, confronts Maika. He says his goodbyes to her, and she confirms that she is now in love with the Kamiya guy. I can barely keep the main character's love triangle straight. This one is just extra fodder that I'm really not interested in. Maika eventually regains all her memories, I guess. Scene by scene, she becomes a bit more normal and doesn't seem as naive as when she's introduced in the beginning. She and Haine embrace as mother and daughter. I know you probably need a flowchart at this point, but remember how Ushio said she's in love with the school doctor guy? Well, he won't take his glasses off in front of her, and that upsets Ushio. So she asks Haine to ask Takanari about it, and he tells them that his mother was actually the doctor's late lover, and Takanari's current mother is actually his aunt, and his mother and aunt were twins. Fucking hell. Just when all seems settled, Takanari was actually declared dead a long time ago, and legally there was only a record of Shizumasa. When the twins were little, they were put up to a trial that would determine which of them would thrive and which of them would be locked into confinement, because that's a normal thing to do to your kids. Takanari was oblivious as to why they were doing the task, while Shizumasa knew, having overheard the adults the night before. They both had to find stones with their respective names carved into it. Takanari finds his, but the old fall of a cliff happens again, and instead of helping his brother, Shizumasa runs away and claims his spot as the favored twin. In the present day, Takanari goes back to his rightful place, locked up in the basement. He speaks with Shizumasa for a bit, and a scuffle occurs before Shizumasa seems to get seriously hurt, supposedly from his illness, which turns out to be leukemia that can only be cured by a bone marrow transplant from his own brother. This is the part where I just start to miss the early chapters, where there was just more lighthearted high school shenanigans and not a ton of nonsense that I have to wrap my head around. Also, I do apologize if my voice is a little bit trembly. I am sick. I've been sick for like 2 weeks now, and I cannot shake this damn cough. I think it's flu A. Sorry if my voice is a little bit wavery. Shizumasa was prepared to die, but Takanari steps in to save his brother despite his protests. Haine confronts the twins' father and demands he give Takanari his freedom. He makes her do the same trial the twins did, and if she can find both of the stones with their names, then they can both be free. So while she's looking, Toya, who I haven't mentioned yet because he's just that forgetful, shows up with Shizumasa's stone. Toya has been like a servant type character for the twins and has been in the family since they were all kids. He throws the stone into the water, then no joke, pulls a gun on Haine. He shoots Haine's shoulder, but she manages to make everything work out. She jumps into the water and finds both of the twins' stones, then returns to the hospital to show them that they are both free. But of course, Miss Drama Queen Haine faints from blood loss because of the gunshot wound from Toya. Cut to, I'm not even kidding, Haine's wedding day, where she's marrying Takanari. Shizumasa shows up too, good as new, and the three of them plan to live together in harmony. Somehow. It ends with close-up shots of all the characters' smiling faces, very cheesy, but very fitting for a shoujo manga ending. I swear, they always end with marriage. I hate it. I remember there being a bonus chapter about Kusame, Haine's brother, and Komaki, Haine's sister, finally falling in love, and it was pretty cute. That was about the only pairing that I actively shipped in this manga. I also discovered recently that Tanemura released a doujinshi of the Gentleman's Alliance cross under the pseudonym Meguro Teikoku. I haven't read it, but the fact that it is a doujin leads me to believe it's probably pretty erotic in nature, but I imagine her smut would be very beautiful if she does draw it. So, if you read this manga back in the day, what did you think of it? Young me would have given it a 10 out of 10, but rereading it now, I think I'd rate it closer to a 2 out of 10. And maybe that's harsh, but it seriously has all of my least favorite tropes, and it's just too ridiculous sometimes to keep up with. Still, the nostalgia I have for the series makes me kind of love it, and the art style has always been very pleasing to me, albeit a little crowded. I remember I had the art book for this manga and I looked at those illustrations almost daily. I absolutely loved all of Tanemura's works and bought a number of her other manga thanks to this one. If you like this video, please let me know, as I'd love to do more deep dives on other media from my childhood, be that manga or anything else. Thanks for watching and have a great night. Bye!